everybody. You're listening to and watching the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
And we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in, or in this case, stream in. Were you guys at all familiar with TV shows from the late 60s, like My Three Sons or Family Affair?
Yep.
Okay.
Family Affair, yeah.
Okay, so Family Affair starred Brian Keith as the head of a merged family, and I'm gonna basically be in the Brian Keith, or if this were My Three Sons, the Fred McMurray role. I'll be here at the beginning, and I'll be here at the end. And if we were filming, I would have filmed all my scenes in a 2-week period. So, so I'm going to take a little break. And if you can tell here, there's a bit of paraphernalia because my team is playing tonight, and they're playing the still presently undefeated. We'll hope we'll change that. Arizona Cardinals. It's currently 7-all, and I kind of have to watch. I'm sorry, but it's also very practical because I've been to conventions, and the last thing you do at conventions is read comic books. So, so I really don't have much to contribute beyond talking about some of the recent cons that we went to. And you may notice here that there's 4 of us in this configuration, and that's because we brought our very good friend John Runyan from the A Comic Book Look podcast. And John, how you doing tonight?
Doing awesome. Thank you guys for having me and putting up with me. And it's almost Halloween, boys. So what?
Jesus, you make it sound like you were like your hotel roommate is a terror tonight
No!
at HDTV. You make it sound like it was. You were absolute pleasure to be around.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
great to be here.
So as you may have deciphered from that bit of conversation, John joined Steve and myself. Caleb wasn't there because he has law school commitments, but he's in the home stretch, and that's always good.
Close. So
really close, man. You're going to have that ESQ after your name.
Not close enough. not close enough.
But
if the ESQ doesn't hurry up, I'm going MIA.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We're not going to turn into that kind of show tonight. But again, as we were saying, we went to Baltimore Comic Con, and Steve and I have gone to it before in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Just once?
I think just once with you guys.
I think just once I think just once, the two of us, and we're hoping to get this crew together again for Heroes. That would be awesome. I think it's going to happen. I truly do. But so with me going to New York Comic Con 2 weeks prior and then Baltimore, I had a little con season, and I have a little con season next week too, with a one-day show over in Homedale, New Jersey as well.
Nice.
So a very small guest list, Jim Shooter and Larry Hama and 100 vendors. So another
all
show to look forward to. All minifigs.
All minifigs.
But we probably should be magnanimous and offer John the first spot. How did you think of your experience there at Baltimore Comic Con?
Wow. Well, let me tell you, boys, this is my first time on the East Coast outside of an airport. So that was huge, right? It was a lot of fun. Great show. And as you guys could tell from my raving reviews on my show last night, I had an absolute blast. And I was talking about it today at the shop too to customers. They were asking. Just wonderful time. Overall, mechanically, the show was good. I appreciated the COVID-19 proactivity, the little clinic by the entrance where Steve and I got our booster shots. And honestly, it was just really good to meet you guys, which I'm sure we'll talk about too and spill the tea. And it's a lot of fun, you guys, when you meet each other from different shows and internet and all that. And Caleb, you're going to have that experience at some point, I promise you. And Bill gives the best intro hug ever. And then Steve, of course, was just like, I'm Steve. I'm like, ah! So it was a great experience. It was very surreal. It was humbling. So that's humbling, I think, is the number one word for a South Dakota boy like me.
My first words to John when I met him in the hotel lobby was, "You're real."
Did you poke him?
And we did have a good experience at the hotel we were at, which was right around the corner from the convention center, which, you know, especially with me with my old man legs, was just perfect. Yeah.
You really should give those back, Bill, because
Now,
I think that the old man actually needs them.
Oh, stop. Look what you did. You made it sound like I'm not old, but I'm old as fuck. So, all right. What's up, Caleb?
now I was going to ask, Bill. You said you had kind of a mini con season being at New York Comic Con, and so as the resident person who didn't get to go to this con, while I was sitting down here in the South, just being sad, I was thinking, I was like, I wonder what Bill's experience, like, I wonder what the contrast is like the comparison and contrast is, because you've got New York City, which is such a bigger con, but it was largely reduced. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what is,
absolutely.
what differences?
Absolutely. So with New York, you know, again, as you mentioned, it's a much bigger convention, but it was still streamlined. I like that word, streamlined.
Okay.
Not a lot of comic content among the bigger exhibitors. You know, as you know, was well publicized. There was no presence by DC, Marvel, Image, Dark Horse, who usually are huge presences, which did give. And we were talking with our friend Steve Rotterdam from Aftershock. You know, without those shows, Aftershock had a great show at New York, and seemed to be the same situation for them at Baltimore. So it was different. I think, you know, even if it was New York firing on full cylinders, the shows are so different to begin with. The Artist Alley situation in New York is much more, it's much more intensive. I think that's a good word, because like even some of the unknown creators sometimes have lines because of, you know, lookity looks and rubbernecking. With Baltimore, I mean, there were some huge lines, and was, you know, and not just the big name creators, as you know, we had our situation with Trish Forstner. That was a huge line. So it's different. The Artist Alley views are different. I think people are I think creators, and I don't want to slam anybody because, you know, we all have friends who are creators. There's a bit more friendliness in Baltimore, because I think you don't have casual fans as much. Yeah, you know, it's very much a comic book intensive show. Yeah. With both shows, I was a bit disappointed in the toys. You know, I usually do very well on that end, and for some reason they just didn't come out in full force this time. But you know, there's 1,000 factors, you know, that any convention I think came off as more than a one-day event, I think is fantastic. And I really like the way Baltimore was set up, and especially with you know, all this anti-vax and vaccine hesitancy bullshit. You know, that they were, I felt very safe at Baltimore. And you know, I don't think that they were just running people through just to get the numbers in, which I think would be a fear. You know, on 2 of the 3 days, everybody had a temperature check prior to entry, and the line on Saturday was absolutely huge to get in. It was as John and Steve being nice put that, because again, Steve and I had press passes, so you know, we can just waltz right in, and you know, there's a definite advantage to that in situations like this. But it was, they were very different. But I think even if New York, as I said, was firing on all cylinders, and it was a much more standard show that New York would have been able to put on, I still think those differences would have, you know, you know, come to the forefront. Yeah.
The one thing, kind of going back to what you were mentioning about the, you know, vaccine hesitancy and the attitude of attendees, I think the respect was there, and that was one of the kind of concerns that I had too. Is just that, okay, how many people are going to be just sitting around going like, "F this, I'm going to take my mask off."
I mean, we're not that far from the Mason-Dixon line there, so.
Well, actually, literally, we're under it.
Yeah, true. Yeah, true.
It's just about 30 minutes that
yeah,
way.
that's true.
But to be very frank, like I think people were so respectful of it. Most people even waiting outside in line. People walking around Baltimore, a lot of times we're wearing a mask already outside because it's like, why I have to keep putting it on and off when I go back in. So why bother?
Hotel lobby as well.
Yeah.
Hotel lobby,
well.
there's just a lot more respect, I think, for the concept of wearing a mask, keeping distance, which is really hard in a show like this when you do have a lot of people. But I think it was great. I think there was only one vendor who I kept looking over expecting somebody to like say something, but I think he was also expecting someone to say something and no one ever did. But I think everybody
in New York.
Yeah. Unlike New York, where where the one guy got like, perp walked out. It was pretty consistent. Actually, I'd say almost 100% consistent. People only took down their masks if they were eating. So it was pretty good. In that respect. Yeah.
All right. Well, if you were tuning in over the weekend to either John's comic book look feed or ours, we were showing off things that we got during the weekend. So since we do have a Geekette segment in this show, we're going to adapt that here. Let me go first because y'all have more to show. And, I don't think I want to bore people with, some of my esoteric single issue gets.
Do we have more to show? I think let's rephrase that a little bit.
All right. Well, there's some reshows and show. We have stuff to show.
Yeah.
Okay. So this was a situation where while John was going through, and I got the book here, Frameworks. These were the brothers Frame, Brendan and Brian, who's probably their biggest credits right now have been some of the books based on the Three Stooges from American mythology. And they have an art book, sketchbook called Crossover Combat. And this is all crossovers of DC and Marvel characters. So you can see here you have Sandman fighting the Flash, which I would say is like an unexpected adversaries, whereas you might have very expected adversaries here with the Black Cat and Catwoman. I really like their style. There's a bit of a Kevin Maguire feel, I think, particularly with the faces. This one's really clever here. You got Blue Beetle versus Beetle. This one I love, the Invaders versus Mr. Atom, which was a Golden Age Captain Marvel foe.
I need that.
Yes. Next time with there, and I don't know where they're based out of, but it's just some wonderful stuff. And this was the one that clinched it for John here, which was Superman fighting Galactus.
It's true.
Yeah.
And just the front and back, or basic Justice League versus Avengers dynamic, but it literally was something we were at the table going through this where John was, and I was like, I have to get this as we walk back. So I got that. And then John was like sort of insane with the gifts. I think insane's the only word. So even before the con started, there were gets. And I just wanted to show this one, especially for Caleb, because of the interest in vinyl. So this is one of the versions that seriously, there's I think like 15 variants out there between the vinyl covers, the vinyl colors, and the different covers of the Dark Knight's dark metal soundtrack. And so you have Wonder Woman here. What you got there? But my copy's signed by Braithwaite, and this has probably the most consistently interesting current metal band out there. Mastodon is on this, and if you know my my love for the British punk band Idols, they also have a track there, and it's based on something that was like pure fun in the metal universe there. So there you go. Caleb's got one, I got one.
That was going to be one of mine. But since we're talking about it, you're talking about some of the songs on there. We've talked about this before. As far as like post-punk stuff goes, one of my favorite bands is Dramarama. I have no idea why. I just really enjoy them. There's a cover of their song "Anything Anything" on here by a band called Grey Days, which I'm not really familiar with. Actually, a fairly decent cover. I was pleasantly surprised. So.
Yeah.
The music on here is great. Even if you're not a comic book geek, if you're into rock and roll, it's well worth your time to go pick this up.
Cool.
And it's pretty.
It is pretty. I wish I had a turntable, but I do not. I haven't gotten that bug yet to get it.
Go out there and do that.
So. We've got a couple good record shops in town too. So
yes, you do.
Stack my phone vinyl.
Yes, you do. I was killing me not picking up some of that stuff. Oh, let me see. I haven't even seen what color vinyl I have here.
Superman blue.
He's blue.
Ooh.
What is it?
I got splatter red.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Oh my god. It's translucent.
The first splatter cover I had was in the 80s, was a Simple Minds album. And the only frustrating thing with that was you couldn't tell if there were scratches or not because, because of the way the vinyl looked. You could hear them, but
it just gets stuck in a loop.
Well, it's bad because there's a song, it's the New Gold Dream album. And there's the song New Gold Dream 81, 82, 83, 84. That's what it's called. And it's just like it's this intro that goes on for like 4 minutes. But it was like, all right, this is like 9 minutes now.
It's just become prog rock. Like all of a sudden, you're like, what happened?
Okay, so over to Giver of Gifts, Mr. John. Why don't you show us some other stuff that you among your many gets?
My many gets. All right, I have a very summarized view plus something that arrived in the mail that Steve knows about. But I really quick just wanted to highlight. We talked about Trish Forstner. I got the Bird City trade exclusive. So this is the Goosebump style. I used to read these bad boys when I would get my Scholastic book order back in the day. So I saw this format and said I gotta have it. She signed it for me. It's awesome. It glows in the dark. I got my blacklight running, and all I can really see is the header super pops, which is super cool. But ultimately, just such a fun addition to the other trades that I have, for sure. And it was awesome to meet Trish. In a theme of our amazing show that we're on tonight, I also wanted to celebrate the cover that I got. The creator was interesting. Andrew Robinson signed my Shirtless Bear Fighter. So I have issue number 3, the sexy variant, where his junk is pixelated and he is relaxing on his bearskin rug, as we all do with our plate of pancakes, and a piece of bacon in his mouth. So wish I was there, Andrew. I did pick up a couple of neat covers here that were just kind of hanging out. So I love me some Galactic. This is Silver Surfer Black, a blank variant with a Silver Surfer with my boy on the back. Galactus is hanging out. And then I was wearing my Alligator Loki shirt and saw this little cutie hanging out and was like, oh my gosh, I have to get this. So the artist, he was having a really bad day and he was very open about that with me. And I said, well, I'm about to make it a good day because I'm going to buy that cover you have right there. It's just so cute. Look at it. So cute. Okay. One book that I did get signed that I am pumped about is this Warlock Chronicles. I had it signed by Jim Starlin at a Minneapolis show. And then on the bottom here, Keith Williams was there. So I got that signed as well. So love me some shiny. And then the final thing to lift up from the comic side of things is I got this commission done of Eternity. My dude Eternity is just hanging out there. So I am all about that and absolutely love it. So you guys want to see something crazy? I got some fun mail. So Steve was with me on this. I ordered these super prints. These are textured, they're shiny. This is Silver Surfer, and he's all blung out and amazing. I love me some Cloak and Dagger, so I had to get this as well. And it was very gorgeous, but the apple of my eye was this textured, shiny, drooly, muscly Venom. Love, love, love. And so these just came in the mail this morning as I was going to work. I was like, oh, hey, I have mail. So that was fun. Yeah. So that's kind of a snapshot of what I got. If you guys want to see everything, definitely check out our previous videos. We went through a good, strong portion of it, and yeah, it was a lot of stuff.
That's awesome. Hey, we do have some people joining us tonight. We've got Tony Gilkinson. Hey there,
Hey,
handsome
Tony.
bears. Well, hello, Tony. And then we've also got James Figueredo has also stopped by. Good evening, you handsome gents. And he does have an opinion about Andrew Robinson. Andrew Robinson is such a babe. So is that accurate? Is that an accurate description there, John?
James, I heart you so much, but my experience was not that. That's okay. That's all right. That's all right. But James,
it's all good.
Awesome. Yeah.
So my gets, I mean, I think you've seen most of my gets for on the previous videos because I didn't get a lot. I was a good boy. I didn't buy too much stuff, but we did have, of course, the big yearbook, which softcover this year filled with wonderful posters that have been commissioned specifically for the yearbook. If you wanted to, you could go and get them all signed by people who were at the con. There were a couple people who were not there that obviously wouldn't be signing it, but you can bring it to the next con that they're at to get signed. Of course, on the gift side, because I did want to mention it again, John was talking about stray dogs. Well, he gifted us the Rainbow exclusive, the store up in Sioux Falls. This is the Cujo exclusive cover that both Bill and I got. And they are signed, obviously, by good old Trish Forstner and Tony Fleeks. So, really cool. And I did actually finish reading this, and okay, it is good. It is so good.
Who said it was good? Who was the first on the block with that? Who was
both of these guys? Everybody.
Who was the first on the block for this show? Yeah. Who was the first on the block for this show?
And then,
Caleb, we were.
It's you and me, Boo. It's always you and me.
It is. Yeah, they don't listen. They don't listen.
The psychic connection.
They listen eventually.
Here, touch my hand.
Yeah, eventually, it takes us time. Bill picked me up the Doom Patrol exclusive cover, and then of course I haven't taken it out yet because Jason's not back to appreciate it. But when he does, I will be giving him that. The Janet Leigh commission that she did for New York Comic Con that Bill picked up for us, so which is really awesome. And of course, I can't forget the last but not least, the Doug Mankey Legends signed, of course, I believe, by Doug himself down there in the little silver. So I'll be thinking of him with every page I turn. And then, of course, I did not get to show this the other day, but I did pick up from Chris Schweitzer, the artist for Six Sidekicks of Trevor Keaton, among other things, colorist for a lot of stuff that Kyle Starks has done. He has these sort of like really cool Santas. They're basically just cut them out and stand them up. There's some pretty fancy Santas in here that I'll be enjoying decorating with. But then also Upshot. Or actually, artist, AWA had a nice booth available with a wonderful little wheel that we all took turns spinning several times. And some of us got some comics out there. I got the Upshot preview, just looking at upcoming horror thrillers. And of course, Bill got a very cool Marjorie Finnegan variant cover of that wonderful thing.
I actually got two, so this one went over there.
Yeah,
to John.
Thank you. Because I kept winning candy. That was the candy.
Yeah. I do still have like a Kit Kat, I think, around here that I never ended up eating. That just ended up back in my bag.
It ended up in my suitcase.
Oh, there you go. Okay. And then I did pick up a whole bunch of single issues, which you guys didn't see because I didn't pick them up until the last day. But Caleb, I've got some stuff on here that I know you've talked about. I got Family Tree #1. Very cool. I got King of Nowhere. Here's the the #1 variant, and then couldn't find some of the other ones, but I'll find them. Haha #6, which John, I know that Tom's a big fan of Haha. Harrow Tales from Harrow County #1, got a nice little cover for that. Strange Attractors, which was very odd, but it's like, why not get some variants of them? Rain Like Hammers, which this was the issue that I needed. I did not have number 5. Nobody had it. It was sold out. And then randomly, a couple issues of the Hawk World.
Cool.
Yeah, we should mention we went to the 80 Years of Hawkman panel.
Oh yeah,
and that was really well done. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, and of course I thought it was great. That's like right afterwards we're like, hey, this is what you're talking about, and like some interesting trivia with it and everything. I was like, this is really cool. I have to pick this up. And then of course Bill had also found for me the Justice Machine annual that also features Thunder Agents. And also apparently the first appearance of the Elementals from Bill Willingham. So very interesting because we were just randomly talking about Justice Machine.
It's not worth a lot, but it's hard to find, and at that price you needed it.
Yeah, of course. And then also the original DC's History of the DC Universe that is in conversation with the other History of the DC Universe that came out this year. I have never read this, so it would be very interesting having read other history first and then going back and reading the History of the DC Universe as of 1986 when I originally came out. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then also picked up a couple trades because I can't say no. I finally got my volume 3 of Mechadet U. And then after years of people telling me you should go back and read Brandon Graham's Prophet, I was like, fine.
I am shocked you never got this because Matt and I talked about both Prophet and Prophet Earth were so often.
All the time.
Yeah.
But I still had it in my head, Rob Liefeld's Prophet, and I was like, it was so bad.
But it's not that. It's not.
You know. It's Brandon Graham, as everyone has told me for the past 7 years or 10 years, actually, basically just like, need to read this. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll read it. And then also, John and I were accosted on our way out the door by this gentleman here, Jason Douglas, for the book Parallel. These, John and I had 2 of the final 3 copies available for the Baltimore Comic Con exclusive cover. So, of course, collector's items, I'm sure. But he was so wonderfully pushy, but in a friendly way. I was like, dude, you're putting in so much effort. We're gonna buy them. Like, don't sell yourself short. He was trying to and you could put it on eBay. It'll be worth something. I'm like, I'm not gonna sell this stuff. I want to read it. So Parallel, which I haven't read yet, but I will. We'll get around to it. But yeah, I mean, those were some of my gets. I did get a couple, but I'm going to be talking about those for my reads today. So, but yeah, it was fun. And again, tiny pile compared to these 2, and also tiny pile compared to my If you look behind Bill, see the steps, the DC Marvel Indie steps.
I don't know if they can see DC.
That's what he got. But
okay, well, Caleb, again, we would have loved for you to have joined us. But apart from the vinyl, was there anything else you wanted to show off at this juncture?
I do have one thing, and I wish I could have been there because I would have absolutely adored it. It is annoying to me that Bill, we've known each other for about 5 years now, and we've never actually got to see each other. That sucks. That's stupid. But I do want to say thank you because, fear of missing out, FOMO, is a real thing with these things, especially for me. Like, if you've known me for a long time, I've got a bad habit of photoshopping myself into pictures of people having fun just for laughs and ha-has. But because you guys put out so much material and so many videos of what was going on and stuff, really didn't have that. It was a really great experience. So in a way, you guys kept both myself and the rest of the people who watch John's show, who watch our show, connected and interactive with it. So that was really cool. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do that because it was a great escape for me. And I do want to say I'm glad y'all got Stray Dogs, and I got to give my boy Tony Fleece a shout out because A, that was great, but B, he's got another project connected to that coming out. It's Stray Dogs Dog Days is going to be hitting the shelves pretty soon. So
2 issues.
2 issues. You want to be looking out for that. It's some backstory that's connected to the story that you just read. It's going to be cool. Tony's an awesome guy. Haven't ever got to meet Trish, but she's on the list. So that's just my little things. But other than the album, which I was totally going to shill, I'm glad that Bill also got that. That was a fun moment. I have a really cool LCS who knows me and knows my taste in things. and even though most of the time it doesn't center around the ephemera related to the world we live in, like I just collect books mostly. He had this and made sure I had first dibs on it, and it's a poster of the DC Pride.
Nice.
Oh,
so I don't know if I'm getting the whole thing in the frame, but it features obviously Batwoman, and, some of my favorite characters. It's got Midnighter and Apollo, but I don't collect posters a lot, but I've got a few, and this is definitely one I'm happy to have. And it's in fairly good condition. He didn't tape it up or anything. He kept it in pretty great shape, and then gave it to me. And I think he charged me like $5 for it, if that. It was more so, if anything comes through the door that is connected to queer characters or stuff like that, he makes sure I've got dibs on it. Case in point, he has got the Authority #3 getting graded right now that I am going to be able to purchase, which is the first appearance of Midnighter and Apollo. Stormwatch #3, excuse me. Yeah, Stormwatch.
I was going to say, I thought they were there prior to the. That's such a confused history.
It was Image. I want to say it was numbers 2 or 3. It's the one where they're like they're shooting up in the sky. But
it's the second Stormwatch series. See, I always get things messed up. Like the most interesting thing I think about that whole is the death of the first Stormwatch, which led into this Stormwatch.
Yeah,
actually took place in Wildcats versus Aliens. It's like so weird that they did it in that. And for some reason, I always thought that that's like sort of like the quasi, but they did roll out, between Jenny Spark, they rolled out the characters in Stormwatch prior to the Authority. That's right. Yeah.
But before too long, I'll own that first appearance, which is on my list. So I'm excited.
Yes. So we have David Toby joining us. Hey, David. Bears. Hello, David. Hello, David.
I'm checking my list if I have it.
And then also James mentioned or asked me a question here. Steve, have you read John Keating and Sophie Campbell's Glory, another Liefeld character that was completely revamped by the new creative team, and it rocks? And I have heard of it. I actually have read at least one issue of that version of Glory, and yes, it is definitely not like the Liefeld Glory. Right away, I definitely knew that. But I do need to get some of those collected editions now that they're all available, I hope, somewhere.
I would jump on that because of the confused situation with Youngblood and him not owning those characters anymore. So I'm
sure I can find the singles somewhere.
Those checker trades of the Alan Moore Supreme, you can't find those now.
No.
But the single issues are like still dirt cheap.
In those 50-cent, or not 50-cent, but like 50% off boxes and things like that.
Yeah. I think you might still be able to get Glory and the Eric Larson Supreme. I think that stuff might still be available.
Yeah, it should be.
Don't wait too long.
Cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're at the half. I am proud to say that the Green Bay Packers are ahead 10-7. So if we lose this one, it's not completely unexpected, and this has been a rarity because I have to say, like, did it start? What's that?
No, it's my phone. I'm watching it on my phone. I'm being a bad podcaster.
Yeah. I'm even being better. But I guess I'm being worse because I'm leaving now. So I will be back for the Woofs of the Week. I know you guys have current comic books to talk about. There may have been a film you saw as well that's not comic book, but God knows there's enough connective tissue that it probably warrants discussion on our show. So I will take my leave, and I will be back at the end of the show. So have a good show, guys.
See you soon. Good. Now he's gone. Now we can have fun. No, I'm just kidding. But Bill was right. I mean, he was mentioning the movie that we're going to be talking about very briefly is the film, the new film by Denis Villeneuve, Dune, which just came out in the U.S. here this past weekend while we were at Baltimore Comic Con. So I didn't get to catch it on the weekend, but on Monday I did get to go see it in IMAX. So on the nice big screen, and I think Caleb, you saw it on IMAX as well.
I did see it on IMAX. Saw it last night. Also, you mispronounced it a little bit. You said Dune. It's actually pronounced Frank Herbert's Dune. So
Frank Herbert's Dune. Yes, it's
you got to throw that little bit in there. It's like a little flair. Frank Herbert's Dune.
It's definitely and that actually is a good way of distinguishing it from David Lynch's Dune,
Right.
which is definitely not Frank Herbert's Dune. Kind of not Frank. Yeah, it's but yeah, I mean, this was 100%. If you've ever watched anything else that Villeneuve has done, this is definitely a Villeneuve film.
Yeah.
And a lot of it comes from sound design, the thoughtful, very, very cinematographically framed imagery that you see. Lots of long shots, lots of landscapes. Very much seeing how small we as a spectator are in light of some amazingly huge landscape or thing or whatever. And the soundscape that he's created with Hans Zimmer. Oh man,
it's incredible.
I love that. I love the percussion. I've been a huge fan of his percussion stuff since Blade Runner 2049. Just the bangs and the clangs and the you feel what's happening through the vibrations of sound. But I don't know, Caleb. I know, John, you went and saw this as well. When did you catch this one?
Yeah, so I actually watched it at home on HBO Max, so also Monday was my free day. So
yeah, so we've all seen it. Caleb, did you want to give a quick synopsis of it, or?
Yeah, well, so I can give you a synopsis of basically what we saw. So in Dune, you have to start from the beginning because Dune is in many ways the beginning. Dune was written prior to Star Wars. Dune was written obviously prior to things like Game of Thrones. Dune is in many ways the foundation for a lot of the pop culture and the references that we all see now and we take for granted. For instance, when Roger and I went and saw this, he was like, "Oh, this reminds me of X," and I'm like, "Yes, but that's where this that came from this." So Dune exists in a galaxy. It exists in a spatial empire with many different houses, and it is very Machiavellian at times. And it's based around this one house. You can call them houses, you can call them clans, depends on how you want to think of it. But House Atreides, and they are a very powerful house. The imagery that they use derives from Spain, so you can imagine them as Spaniards, and they have just been ordered by the Empire to take over the planet to take over control of this planet that is kind of the hub of everything in this universe, because it's where the spice is. And if you know anything from Dune, chances are you know the spice. The spice must flow. He who controls the spice controls the universe. And this planet Arrakis is it is a brutal planet. It's a desert planet. There's not much there. It's inhabited by a desert people who are uniquely fit to survive there. They have their own culture. They have their own way of life, and they've largely been under the boot of one empire or another since the spice was found. Now, for them, the spice is sacred. It's they use it for its healing properties. They use it for its psychedelic properties. But for everyone else, it's used for space travel. It's the way that they navigate the stars. It's how they have expanded to have this giant empire. The individuals, the clan, the house that had existed there before, House Harkonnen, was basically just a BDSM nightmare gone to hell. It is very, very much a brutal house. It is a house that relishes in feudalism, mainly because they're at the top, and they enslave the planet, they enslave other people, they exist for war, and they feed off of power. They are not pleasant, and they're visually looking, they are not meant to be pleasant. They are decrepit. I'm terrible with names, so you'll have to help me out with names. But Drax is a member of House Harkonnen, and so they're just these warlike people who are constantly battling for supremacy, and they are pissed that this planet and this power got ripped out from under them. But as in all things, this is literally a Game of Thrones, and this being given to the house that it was given to is not necessarily beneficial to them. It puts a target on their back. So you have that. But in this house, you have got a family. Obviously, you've got the Duke and his wife. His wife is a she's a space witch, for lack of a. No, they're not. I don't think it's even his wife. They call her his concubine, but
he never married her.
Right? Yeah, she is a member.
There's a lot of political maneuverings why he never married her, because she's not technically royal blood.
Right.
Yeah.
But she is a very powerful witch, sorceress, and a member of this order where they are a lot like galactic and Machiavellian nuns who practice magic, and they can see the future, and they have been behind the scenes manipulating the bloodlines of all the houses to produce a Neo-like figure, a prophet who is going to unite the entire universe. And of course, Mom has a son, and so who is a. I'm trying to think of the best way to describe him.
He's a sensitive child.
Yes.
Sensitive.
He is. He is unassuming.
Battle twink.
Yeah, he's a battle twink. He's unassuming, right? Like, he is not someone that you would look and say, "Oh, that guy's going to lead armies." Very, very slender, not a lot of muscle, no meat on the bones, but has a lot of heart, like you might expect. But it's just he's not who you think is going to go out and gonna fight gonna fight battles. But he in fact becomes that. But of course, this first episode, and that's what I think it is. This first part is him gaining that. So the family goes to they go to Arrakis. They set up. They get the planet ready. They found out that there has been some things sabotaged, obviously, because they're not happy about having the Harkonnens are not happy about having the planet stripped away. And if they don't get the spice production up and running, there's going to be hell to pay. The Emperor is going to come down on them hard. So they have to figure out ways to do it. So they start they start exploring the ways they can get the sand up and running, which causes the family and our main character, our would-be hero, to go out into the desert and to start meeting some of the locals, to start meeting some of these desert folk, these people Fremen. Who are just the Fremen who are there and set up to exist in the two worlds, kind of, and they are not happy about being encumbered by anybody, and so there is friction at every turn, and of course in the desert, the famous part about Dune, you have the sandworms. The desert is not a safe place. You can't walk in the desert, or you will attract these 400-meter long tubes of teeth. It's terrifying. Who can feel the vibrations and will come up and just swallow you whole. It's basically the fleshlight of doom. It's not a good situation. So as they are out there, things happen. The politics of it all come to a head. I don't want to spoil anything too far, but betrayal happens. People are murdered. Fire rains from the sky in unexpected ways. There are team ups that shouldn't be, and assassinations take place. If that spoils anything, I'm sorry. The book was written a long time ago. That's your fault, not mine. So they get through, and our hero gets sent out to the wilderness, gets separated from everybody, and is with his mom, but they are in a bad situation where they are taken by the Fremen. He's put in a situation to prove himself, which he adequately does so. And that's really where the story cuts off. This is part one of what I think is going to be 2 parts. They could string it out to 3. I don't think they'll do that though. But that's the gist of it. And that's the 30,000-foot view. There is so much in this film. There's so much context. They go in depth. And I'd love to hear what you guys think about it before I give my thoughts on it. So kind of just drop in and tell me what you guys thought.
Well, real quick, we had a couple people pop in. So Jay Yospa, who we actually got to hang out with and took us out to this amazing restaurant while we were in Baltimore. So Jay Yospa just popped on to say howdy. John Westhoff has joined us, dropping the double devil horns there. Hey, John. David mentions Twink Luke Skywalker, which, yes, I mean, I thought Luke Skywalker was already pretty twinky, but this guy has him beat. Timothy Chalamet. James quoting Caleb, a BDSM nightmare gone to hell. Alexander McKenzie, comma, Caleb, 2021. And then David Toby, of course, again, going down with the twink, battle twink, voguing down the sand dunes to some of the sand words. I could totally see it, because there is a lot. There is a lot of, like, gestures that are happening and, like, you know, sight beyond sight, to quote Dune. But there's a lot with this. And I think a lot of people, because it is a cult classic, for various reasons, people were comparing this, and still do and still will forever, compare this to the David Lynch version of Dune that came out in 1984, which in itself was very different interpretation of the original book. But a lot of the stuff, and I think this is one of the things that I very much appreciate about the movie, is that we don't hear the inner dialogues in Villeneuve's version of Dune. In Lynch's version of Dune, because there's so much in the book, there's so much backstory, there's so much inner monologue, there's so much thoughts and reactions that are done in the characters' heads. Lynch thought that it would work to just go ahead and have all of those thoughts constantly being broadcast. In Villeneuve's version, they don't do that. It's very much, left up to the audience to interpret what they're seeing, and the facial reactions and the body, the body language, and just how the tableau is composed when something happens. That's what's important for us. And there's like a lot of, interesting techniques where you can kind of understand what's going on inside their heads, with a lot of sort of, differently composed or superimposed reactions. So the very infamous scene that I think most people know about, what's in the box, the box is fear and pain. Basically, in the original book, there's a lot of inner experience that's being expressed there. In the Lynch version, it was all, like Comic Lachlan making a face, and you can hear everything that's going on in his head. In this version, it strikes a balance between the mother and the son, the son's expressions, the son's, experience of the pain, and the mother, repeating the mantra, fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death, all these things that are just kind of going back and forth. A lot of really beautiful scenes, a lot of great action. There's a lot that's, I think, a little bit more fleshed out that happens that you probably didn't see in the Lynch version. That is still different, and a different interpretation about what happened in the book. There's a lot. This book is dense. And it's no surprise that Villeneuve wanted to split it into two movies, because otherwise I don't think you could do this in just 2.5 hours. It's going to be at least a 5-hour epic when it's done. And that's just talking about the first book. If this continues into a massive series, I mean, it gets wild. And if anybody had seen, because this has been done as well in a miniseries format. So Dune and Children of Dune have been adapted by Sci-Fi, several years ago, with interesting special effects. But again, it's that's probably another. If you can find it somewhere, that's probably another good visualization. If you haven't read the book or don't want to dive into those, and it's difficult. There's a lot of politics, a lot of religion. Yeah, religion is a huge part of this. And I think in this version of Dune, that religion and the impact of religion and the use of religion to manipulate and control populations, as well as, of course, the more mystical aspects of faith, are all very well presented. I mean, even something as simple as the palm trees. You know,
Right.
the palm trees drink as much water as 10 men a day, and yet they're sacred, and of course they're going to be watered every day on this desert planet where people, you know, have to wear still suits so that they don't lose any moisture where they are. Just very interesting things. You know.
And you've got the Bene Gesserit who are the witches, and when I was giving my synopsis, I didn't say that that's what they're called. They're the Bene Gesserits, but they, space witches. It's the best way to just kind of jokingly say to them, but there's so much more than that. They are a universal political religious force. In many ways, they are a matriarchal version of the Catholic Church of the Inquisition times.
Yeah.
And they hold a lot of clout. They are both respected and feared and revered. And they're untouchable in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And you see that become an issue because the untouchable get touched in this. And it causes all hell to break loose.
And I'm really intrigued. There are also some things that we didn't see in this movie that Villeneuve chose not to put in part one. We didn't see the Space Navigators. We didn't see the Spacing Guild. We didn't see the Bene Tleilax, which is, another kind of, counter force to the Bene Gesserit, where Bene Gesserit are all about the power of humanity and, breeding, natural abilities from the memories of humanity, whereas the Tleilax are all about genetic manipulation through surgery and cloning and all sorts of craziness. The character of Piter, the assistant to the Harkonnens, he's a creation of the Tleilax. Which is why he's a sadistic monster. But there's a lot of interesting things here that I'm really excited to see in part two, which we did finally on Monday or Tuesday, like everybody was nervously waiting, is announced for October of 2023. As long as there's no other pandemic that comes in and deletes it. But yeah, John.
Oh man,
what's your impressions?
Like I said, I am not a buff like you guys are, so if I biff any names, my bad, but I'm just going off of what I saw. First of all, with the soundtrack, just kind of more of a mechanic feedback here based on the fact that I saw it through a television with not so great speakers. The music for me, I had really high expectations because I enjoyed Children of the Dune soundtrack. I have the CD and I used to play it all the time and I loved it so much. Wow. And this wasn't that for me, and I blame my TV speakers because I trust you guys have good taste in music. So I bet that if I saw it in IMAX or in a theater, it probably would have been a way different experience for me on the music level. So I'm kind of bummed about that. So all of you that are going to watch it on TV, just keep that in mind. If you can see it in the theater, go for it. So let's talk about the movie. First of all, the scene where Paul is trying to do the voice, right, at the kidnappers. The mom is like, bro, we've watched Pitch Perfect how many times? Get it together. Get it together. You know what I mean? But it was a cool scene. It was a cool scene. I loved that it ended up working kind of, sort of. And that was awesome. And I was like, go, Paul. That's amazing. I really like that moment. Another thing is there was a term for when the palace was being invaded and there was a line of defense going and they were doing really well. And then the squad dropped behind them and started attacking from the back. There was a term for that special commanders group. Ken rattles it off. I'm like, what?
Sardaukar.
Yeah, sure.
Sardaukar warriors.
So I was just like, that's awesome. But the defense was like, we're screwed. They knew it right away, And that the shield battling, the body shields, all that was just so cool to watch, and how they really did a good job with their posture. I mean, how many takes did that take, to do? Because they did a really fine job with the choreography, I felt, in that. So that was really exciting for me, that whole scene. What else? The scene where, and this is Paul's father is the overhead of House Atreides, I'm assuming, when he was at the bad guy's table wearing the best birthday suit in the movie.
Yeah.
I was just in my
very
mind,
well tailored.
I was in my mind. I love you, Ken. I was in my mind. Sir, Mr. Barron, I'm going to pull up a chair right here and I'll just take care of our guests. and make sure he's comfy and feed him some grapes or something, and we'll just get anything we want. That was a good looking man right there, and I don't know that he deserved the poison tooth. All right, so I don't know. I get why he did it, but man,
I mean, Oscar Isaac, come on,
is a gorgeous man.
He is a gorgeous man. He is amazing in pretty much every role. I haven't been this lusting for him since oh gosh, it was the very quiet film with just 3 actors. I think it was Alicia Vikander, himself, and Donald Gleason, where he had created an artificial intelligence.
Ex Machina.
Ex Machina. I mean, him and Ex Machina with like the wife beater and like the shaved head and beard. I was like, here he's like regal, even just lying uncomfortably, buck naked, surrounded by his enemies. I was just sort of like, this is a little steamier than I kind of was.
I know, like, is this a hostage situation or what's going on? Yeah.
Well, and he's aged very well since then. He is, he's very much daddy now, and looks the part. The salt and pepper works really, really, really well for him. Yeah.
And then and then we can't forget Aquaman making the greatest sacrifice of all. Coming to the desert, getting parched, but taking out 20 of the 21 troops. That was an amazing scene. I mean, I was like, oh, Jason, that's amazing. So very happy about that. And sad to see him go. I think it would have been a cool character to have around for the second part, but I get it. Whatever. Fine. Okay. I was an idiot, a sheeple, and thought that was it,
No, that's the feeling you should have.
Okay.
He's dead. It's sad.
Yeah. Well, that makes my night. I'm excited for part 2. But he was a really good presence in the film, I felt. I ultimately, for not knowing too terribly much about it, like I can't compare it as much to the previous ones just because I didn't watch them as heavily. I really enjoyed it, just from a viewing standpoint. Visually, it was beautiful. The worms were fierce and had trillions of teeth and holy buckets. The one thing I would have liked to have seen, though, is just more of the ride. So we had our pickaxes out, but then she gets, attacked from behind, so she wasn't able to hop on it. I wanted to see more of the riding of the worm, I guess, because I thought that was always such a fascinating way to get around, kind of an Uber.
Well, Desert Twink will be riding that worm at some point.
I was going to say, you will see more of that in part 2. One of the great things I think that this movie did is the world of Dune, the universe of Dune, is dense. It is complex. It is layered. There is so much. I've got a copy of the book, like the next room over. It's 2 inches thick. Like it's
the shortest one.
Yeah,
it's like the shortest of the series.
It's a thick book. So they had to pick and choose in making this film what to show you and just how well to parse it out. One of the things I love about this film is you grow into the film. You grow into it with Paul. Like you grow into it with Timothée Chalamet's character. It unveils what he knows as he gets to it. So we don't see, the world of the Fremen as much because he doesn't know what it's like. He doesn't know that world. We, you're talking about, Jason Momoa's character. You don't see, you don't know that Jason Momoa's character is actually this universally feared, renowned mega soldier who is just like, he is respect, like all of the bad guys that come to fight, they all know his name. He is respected. By the end of the movie, you know that, but you don't know that when he introduces you. He's just a guy that's Paul's friend who flies a cool starship. And is kind of like, you realize he's a badass, but you don't know the extent of that. It shows you that. It allows the viewer to grow with the film. The same is true of the Bene Gesserit, even though his mom is a witch. And the cool thing about Paul, and something we haven't said, is Paul literally is the one. He is this Neo character. He's bringing together all the worlds. The Bene Gesserit were supposed to bear a daughter, not a son. She broke the code by doing that, mixing the worlds of the Bene Gesserit with the politics of the great houses. by the end of it, mixing the world of the Freeman and the respect for the spirituality of the spice and the respect for personhood and everything else. He's bringing that all into a conglomerate, but we don't know that. And it's not going to show you that until the end, because the plot is just being dropped off in little points for you to absorb. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful film trope. I've seen some people that I respect, some known comic writers who didn't like this film, and they would argue that the storytelling is just piss poor. I respectfully disagree with that. I think that what most likely happened is they were playing on their phone for a little bit during the film. They got up and went to use the bathroom. They missed things. This film, for better or worse, and that's no disrespect for them, because you can't blink. You really can't. This film is dense. It is a dense film, and it suffers no fools. It requires you, the watcher, or the viewer, to do the legwork of contextualizing everything, like Steve said, through one-off sentences, through facial expressions, through tone of voice. Like, it makes you take in all these context clues. If you do that, and looks, that might be a fault if you're expecting a popcorn film that you don't really want to pay a lot of attention to, which those are great, nothing against them. That might not be, like, you might not be getting a full scope of the story, and that might be a fault of the film. If you're somebody who pays attention to that thing, if you're used to watching highly contextualized, art with a capital A, I'm going to be snooty a little bit, films, which I think is what this at least is attempting to be. I don't know if it necessarily succeeds, but it's definitely an attempt to it. It delivers an incredible, just almost an overwhelming and a powerful narrative and a story that is completely there. And it's, it's one of those things you go back and watch again, and you almost need to watch it with subtitles on to really get the full scope of it, because the story is incredibly impactful and it's rich. And it's a long film, but I don't know about you guys, but for me, when it was over, I was like, man, I thought this was 2.5 hours long. And then I looked at my watch and I'm like, oh shit, it was. It went by fast. It was a very well-paced film. From my perspective, I hats off. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed it. To wield this giant cast of characters, and to wield the subtext that they worked in there, and to wield all of these storylines, and to bring it all to a head. One person we really haven't spoken about is Zendaya's character, who is she's a Fremen. She's a young woman. I saw somebody tweet out that Zendaya keeps getting typecast as perpetually unimpressed by the twinks. I'm like, between that and Spider-Man, she's just like skinny boy, so she can do it better. Her character was phenomenal, and you learn so much more about the Fremen through just little bits by watching her and watching the way she operates by the end of it. And in the next part, it's going to unload on us, and we're going to see so much more. We're going to learn more about these great houses. We're going to get more history with the Atreides. You can only imagine. I actually haven't read the book, so it's on my shelf, so I need to. But contextually speaking, it's phenomenal. And like I said, to each their own. I know a lot of people have watched this, and they thought it was a beautiful. I think one well-known comics writer described it as beautiful and soulless, but respectfully disagree. I don't know what film you saw or didn't see. So,
well, it's definitely beautiful, and I disagree that it was soulless. I think they did a good job sort of mitigating how much of the soul that it revealed.
Yeah. Because it's long form storytelling, right?
Yeah.
Like we have the benefit now of knowing everything that happened in Lord of the Rings. You go back and watch Lord of the Rings in the theater, like I did, like you guys probably did. When the first Lord of the Rings ended, I had questions. I was mad. The story wasn't over. I wanted more of it. It needed to be unveiled. It wasn't done. That's not the end of the story. There's no completion there. Well, that's because it's long form cinematic storytelling. Just like issue X of whatever we're going to read is not going to finish. The arc. It's an arc, and you have to wait for the full unveiling of the story. And I would be willing to bet hard-earned green American dollars that I don't really have, that by the end of watching the second movie, those same people who are talking about it are going to go, oh, okay. And maybe not, but I'd be willing to bet that they are.
Well, that's actually a pretty good segue talking about comics. John, did you have any last thoughts on
Dune? Again, visually delightful. I definitely want to investigate the music now that you guys have spoken highly about it, just because the previous movie served me well. And I love
it in your ears, get stereo going.
Yeah.
So I will definitely check it out. Ultimately, though, I also would recommend it for sure, just as someone as an outsider, because it does make the characters approachable. It's a fresh take on it, and just some really cool notes in there. So.
Oh yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, definitely. I can't wait. 2 years. Countdown is 2 years from now for part 2. So for comics this week, I actually started reading through my stack of con gets, and one of the ones that I picked up was actually a new book that has come out in the past month, and it's part of an ongoing long form comic series built in trades, and that is Cami Garcia and Gabrielle Piccolo's Beast Boy Loves Raven. And here's a little Rules Breed Rebels thing there for Cami Garcia, who she told us all about it because she loves to talk, but so much fun to listen to her because she's just fascinating. So I've been reading this, and I think everybody here has been reading the other books in the series. This follows the Raven book as well as the Beast Boy book. And this is part 3, where they finally meet in Nashville, I believe, where they've come from their respective towns, lured by Slade Wilson. That Slade Wilson, who's trying to get them together for some reason. We don't know why. Something to do with Hive, and we don't know too much about Hive here, but I'm sure anybody reading this book is like, evil, probably. But anyway, so these two encounter each other, sort of over the course of their arrival in Nashville. And Beast Boy, of course, is immediately smitten. He's like, oh my God, this chick, I love her. And she's like, oh my God, this boy's so weird. But they eventually do get together in some very crazy circumstances, because Slade and his employers kind of hatched their scheme as a way to draw out their powers. Meanwhile, we also have some of the supporting characters. Raven's foster sister has followed her from New Orleans, and her foster sister also has a little bit of her own powers. Max can actually see ghosts and can also raise spirits of the dead to fight with her, which is a very cool power, and she gets to use it a couple times. And we're also introduced to another person that Slade has been talking to. Who could it be? That's right. Damian Wayne makes an appearance in this book, who has been, requested by Slade to join him in Nashville as well. And so when these 4 young people get together, some sparks can fly, because this does have a lot of romance to it. And of course, from Cami Garcia, that's kind of a lot of her other writing. There's a lot of romance with some very fantastic supernatural stuff. So I think it works out pretty well. We do get some powers. We do get some action. The art is, of course, beautiful. The colors in this one are a little bit different from the colors in the other 2 books. There's a little bit more of a variation here, because now we get the 2 color schemes together. And I think the job there was by David Calderon to kind of make that decision there and sort of bring together the different styles of coloring from the other 2 books into this one to mix it together. But it also gives us I have frozen, and now I am back. It has given us something else to look forward to for the next part, because this is definitely not over. The 4th book, which is called Robin, and will bring back Damian Wayne, but also potentially Tim Drake or, some other Robins, in order to continue the story, which will, as Cami Garcia told us, will lead to this version of the Teen Titans that she's building together. So really excited for the next installment, which should be next year sometime. I hate having to wait for it, but it's definitely worth the wait. So you can pick up Beast Boy Loves Raven at your local comic shop, and there are some exclusive versions at Barnes & Noble and Walmart that have some additional back matter. Like one of her other upcoming graphic novels is a new Constantine graphic novel that she's writing with a different artist, and I think it's the artwork does more fit the Constantine character. And then, of course, just some sketches and some really cool stuff in the back. So really recommend it. Cami Garcia on writing, Gabrielle Piccolo on art. Beast Boy Loves Raven.
I love how much you love those. I really do. Like,
I do.
I love how much you love those.
I'm not a big YA person, but I tend to be sometimes. And I don't know why, but I'm loving the romance, kind of like the weird sort of like romance aspect and the very teeny boppery aspect of it, because it feels real, mixed in with the fact that you've got a dude who turns into animals and like a girl whose dad's a demon and lives in a little stone on her chest. So it's like, okay.
Well, so I'm not historically a YA fan either, but I do read some YA, especially now that we're getting a little bit older and stuff. But I think I was thinking about this the other day, and I think part of it is because we live in a world that's just so inundated with the real, where everything is, in the gray and it hurt, like there's pain everywhere. We're dealing with politics all the time. We're dealing with just kind of everything. Relationships are messy. Real life is messy. It's really nice to sink into some of these YA books where things are, there's complexity and there's things being explained and the human condition is laid out really well, but it's done in a really digestible way. And at the end of it, there's usually, and I say usually, a happy ending where we don't see that in real life very often. And it's nice to just have something wholesome, actually, instead of just shitty. So, and getting to watch, everybody on the show, but to watch you especially digest these and enjoy them and just kind of glow about them has been really cool.
Thank you. Well, I'm definitely enjoying them. So moving on to the next person, Caleb or John.
I'll let John go. We'll give him the floor. He's the guest. We'll make a sandwich out of him.
Well, you guys, I have DC offerings, but Bill's not here to be proud of me. What the heck?
We'll be proud of you for him.
Yes. So, Bill, when you watch this on the replay, I'm just kidding. But DC Comics, you guys, first of all, I got to say, I'm about 3.5 weeks behind on my reads, okay? Struggle's real. And I still pick them up each week, and then I got these mountains on my desk, and it's trouble. But I did have a chance to read beautiful variant cover here, DC issue 1 of 6, Arkham City, The Order of the World. Very becoming cover. I love the sharp colors on it. I just wanted to try it out, and I had no idea what I was jumping into. This is really interesting because it's not Batman centric and it's actually focused on the villains, which I love the villains, and so this book is surprisingly up my alley, and I am very excited about it. This book, the cover looks all sleek and stuff, but then when you jump into the artwork, it's completely different and trippy, and the lettering's all trippy, and I'm just here for it. I love how bizarre it is. So basically, Dr. Joy is like a doctor from Arkham Asylum, and these villains broke out after the whole incident, A-Day or Joker Day or whatever they're calling it, where the serum killed all the inmates. There's a few of the D-list characters out there in Gotham now, and they're trying to find them and bring them back and control the press surrounding it. And so the book opens up, Ratcatcher is under the bed of a little girl, and he's like claiming he's going to eat her, and they subdue him, and the police are like, Dr. Joy, we got to do something about this. Like, we can't keep, holding the press off. And she's like, contain it or it's going to get worse because it'll freak out the other villains. So she's trying to do this secret damage control kind of a thing. Interesting story with the Mad Hatter running around in the sewers and it ends with him leaving with a source of light, which they suspect is the ghost of the Arkham Asylum founder, which was interesting. And then there's this weird character, the man with eyes on all 10 fingers. And he's a very dark one. He stole a man's jaw to perform a ritual to save him and Dr. Joy from bad spirits, possibly the ghost of the Arkham founder as well. So this is issue 1 of 6, and already we have this 10-eyed finger man stealing teeth and a jaw literally from a guy. The guy's in the hospital now. Mad Hatter's gone missing, and then the Ratcatcher's trying to eat little girls. It's crazy. And this is the kind of stuff that I like about Gotham, is that it's a perpetual supply of darkness and randomness, but this is a little bit different. It's not Joker centric. I love Scarecrow, but Fear State's kind of dominating all the books right now. So this is a welcome sidestep to that, where it just kind of takes us to more of that street level and talking about people on Arkham's payroll, and making it interesting and fun. So I actually was very entertained by this, and I will stick with it because I just want to see where the heck it goes. Plus, if I get to meet the ghost of the founder of Arkham Asylum, I'm here for it. So that's awesome. But yeah, it was a delightful treat. I did not see myself liking this as much as I did, and just in time for Halloween. So I thought it was appropriate to lift up tonight.
That's awesome.
That sounds like a really intriguing book, and they've done non-Batman centric Gotham supernatural horror before with a couple other books, like Gotham Academy delved into sort of like the supernatural, under the streets of Gotham and like the legacy of the founders of the city. But then also, what was the book where it had it basically had the Spectre in it, about sort of like the spirit of Gotham was infecting people, and the spirit of Gotham itself was like this really dark soul that had been there before the city. It was a series, lasted about maybe about 12 issues.
I remember what you're talking about, but I didn't read it, so I'm not 1000% sure. But
it was a Gotham PD kind of adjacent book.
Batwoman had several, I think, tied into that at one point. And Batwoman's another one of those books that does something similar. I mean, it's a Bat-centric book, but she's a monster fighter at the end of the day, and she gets really down in the weeds. There's a few different parts of the series where they go underground and they're fighting like in the demon or the monster city underneath Gotham, and so you're seeing a lot of the seedy stuff from there. So yeah, that's another one that you would probably enjoy and be interested in.
Awesome.
Yeah, I like that it's going into that kind of the weird, crazy horror legacy of Gotham and Gotham characters. I think that's really cool.
Well, any book with Deadman in it is always something to jump into, because jump into, pun intended, but because Deadman. But it's those are always really fun stories too. So.
But a strong offering. I was very excited about how excited I was about it. So I was like, wow, I actually really like this. So that's cool.
And that cover. That cover's so gorgeous.
They do a good job on those cardstock ones.
Do you know who did the variant?
Who did that cover? Wait, hold on. Finding.
Well, while you're finding, you were talking about how covers are way different from the art. I'm going to have a grumble about DC. Picked up my books and read the last Green Lantern book, which story was great. Fun story. Except for the fact that the cover, Gotham City Monsters was excellent, David. The cover of Green Lantern says it's Kilowog's last stand. Kilowog's not in the book at all. Like, it's not a Kilowog story. They don't talk about him. He's just not there. It talks about like every other Lantern but Kilowog. Wow. So I think we're all used to it now. Covers not necessarily matching up with what's on the interior, especially like stylistically. But when the title is Kilowog's last stand and he's not, what? Like, why? Like, who did this?
On the cover, Francisco Mattina.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's the good.
Awesome. So Caleb, what have you been reading?
Well, John actually, because he had his story had a little bit of a horror bent to it, it actually segues well into something that I read this week, which was a pleasant surprise because it's a title that I love but haven't had an issue come out in a couple of years, it seems like. And that is none other than The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Which popped out this next week, and this is number 9. This is the Archie Horror. I mean, I think we all remember when Archie Afterlife was killing it, and which is still not finished yet. But you're getting Jughead the Hunger, which was a great series, and there's a couple of other Sabrina series that have gone on since. But this one, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, just kind of hit the brakes in the middle of nowhere, and something happened. Nobody really knew what, but finally we have another issue just in time for Halloween. So I thought that was really, really great timing. And this is part of the Witch War. It's chapter 3, the Sacrificial Lamb. Story by Roberto Aguirre Sacasa, artwork by Robert Hack, lettering by Jack Morelli, with publisher John Goldwater. Really loved Robert Hack's art in this. It was great seeing him again. He wasn't the original artist on the first arc, I don't believe, and I forget who that was, but also Andy Fish was the artist on the other Sabrina series, and I love their art. Either way, you're getting just gorgeous, beautiful work in this. Art-wise, it's absolutely stunning. But what's Sabrina been up to? What's been happening? What's been happening in her world? Well, all kinds of shenanigans. Okay, so if you have watched the Sabrina miniseries on Netflix, it clues you into a lot of stuff that this is not that, but a lot of those characters are in this. Sabrina's dad, Edward, is not a good dude. I think we all know that. But he has been up to some stuff. Way back in the day, Sabrina's dad was having a fling with a demon named Madam Satan. Again, Netflix, we've seen that. But broke it off to go do some stuff with the woman who became Sabrina's mom and had a baby. Obviously that being Sabrina. All of that happened. Well, in the meantime, Sabrina's dad was MIA, doing some stuff in hell, just minor things. But he has come back now, but not in the way that you might expect. So some things happened in this story that caused Sabrina's boyfriend, Harvey Kinkle, to die. Womp womp womp. Sadness. Everybody was brokenhearted. I mean, it was tragic. Just single tear kind of thing. Sabrina did some stuff with that she wasn't really sure about, and she maybe should not have done, which led to Harvey being raised from the dead. Now, with magic, everything has a price, and with necromancy, that price is a soul for a soul. But that's not the only problem. Because in an extra twist, little stroke of weirdness, this isn't actually Harvey Kinkle. This is Sabrina's dad, Edward, in Harvey Kinkle's body, which is a little weird. And maybe they won't do anything. I don't need to have a Star Wars moment, but with the dad, it's kind of creepy. But so Edward Spellman has taken over Harvey Kinkle's body. And this creates numerous problems, as you might imagine, that's going to lead in certain directions, not only with the fact that, again, the rules of magic are a life with a life. So Sabrina knows this. She's been told this, and she's having to figure out what she's going to do. Sabrina's not a killer, but what she's got to do and what kind of the base of this issue is her aunts kind of explained to her, the only way for Harvey to keep living is if you kill someone. And can Sabrina do that? Well, she thinks she can. And her plan and what they're setting up in this is she's going to find somebody who deserves to die, a killer, somebody who is just bad. That's easier said than done. But she thinks she has the perfect candidate. And so she's working to that. In the meantime, Edward in Harvey's body is going around making up for lost time, doing bad things like, sleeping with some of the cheerleaders in a broom closet, things that just are that Harvey wouldn't do. That inevitably in the plot is going to get undone, and it's going to break Sabrina's heart because she's going to think it's Harvey. This, that, and the other. We're going to see what happens. Sabrina, at the end of this issue, things come to a head because she's cornered somebody that she is convinced is just morally bankrupt, a murderer, and she is going to dispatch with them. That way she can keep Harvey around forever. But everything's not what it seems. And as she's getting ready to kill this man, she quickly realizes that this man is actually possessed by a devil, by a demon. And the person in the body, the person that's actually being possessed is not a bad person. Was driven to commit these acts because they were possessed. And in kind of the machinations that's going on, this demon knew what it was doing and was setting her up to fail specifically, jumps out of that body at the last minute. and some other stuff goes on, which you should go read this. I don't want to spoil it. It's a great Halloween type story. If you dig the vibe from the Andy and Veronica Fish stuff, you're gonna like this. If you like the Netflix series, you're really going to enjoy this. I mean, it's nasty. At one point in time, Daddy Spellman bangs a snake succubus just because. Why not? It's
like
really,
you do, right?
Yeah, it's really here for the horror. And the graphics, Madam Satan, who like in the series is actually masquerading as one of Sabrina's teachers at the school. So very happy to have this back. Tonally, it fits in right with where we left off with the Archie Horror verse. It was a pleasant surprise. I love the style of this book because everything kind of has that rockabilly 1950s-esque vibe. The colors are very what you're used to seeing on something like Francesco Francavilla. It's just really, really solid. I hope that they keep a regular schedule with this because I would really like to see it more often. And I really need to know what happens here. I really need to know what Sabrina is going to do and how she's going to get out of this pickle. Numerous pickles that she's in. How she's going to deal with Harvey being possessed by her father, how she's going to deal with what her father has done with Harvey's body, and whether she can forgive that as their relationship goes on, whether she's going to be able to look at this boy that she loves in the same way. So in a lot of ways, it's kind of the opposite of Steve's book. I'm so glad to have this back. Have either of you read anything in the Archie Horrorverse? Okay.
Yeah, I actually had been reading Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and then I think they went on a really long hiatus. The first time they went on a really long hiatus was around like issue 5 or 6, and then after that, I kind of missed the next couple of issues because I think a year passed.
Yeah, it's
and I'm not really sure. I know that there's been some publishing choices around there with the Signal issues. Like they're not really doing a lot for a little while. They were really on top doing these monthly books, sort of like, these reinterpretations of Archie, either with the, the Fiona Staples drawn books that were just really amazing. The Archie and Friends, and then also the stuff that, Erica Henderson, and was drawing for the Jughead books. It's just there's a lot, and I just totally blanked on the name of the writer for those. He's just a great comedy writer. But anyway, I mean there were some really good stuff that they had going on. In addition to the Horrorverse stuff, the Archer, Afterlife with Archie and The Hunger and Sabrina. I think there was one other book too that was probably a tie-in to Afterlife. But then they just kind of took a bunch of breaks.
Yep.
Don't know what happened. Digests obviously are still coming out regularly. So if you're a fan of the Archie Digest, then you've got them every month. But the singles was kind of sad. But everything that they come out with is gold. So it's like a little gift whenever it arrives.
And look at this succubus. Look at it.
Oh my
Snack. Slept with Snack.
So check these out. Highly recommend. Great times. It tis the season, as they say.
What issue number was that, Caleb?
So this is 9.
Okay.
If you can find, I think that they put it out in trade. Steve, correct me if I'm wrong. So you should be able to find the first trade. I think was 1 through 5. Might have been 1 through 6. Really highly recommend it. Highly recommend Jughead, The Hunger. That was phenomenal. Jughead turns into a fucking werewolf. That's great. Like eating people on cheeseburgers. Yeah. And the resident. Oh, and I'm a bad gay. I can't remember his name. The gay character in Archie. Kevin
Keller.
Yeah, Kevin Kelly plays a big part in that book. So I'm very, very queer related.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Vampironica.
Well, werewolf stuff is very queer coded anyway, but
it is.
Yeah. So cool. I mean, just how creative they have been with these Archie books and like the Archie Horrorverse is like, who would have thought? Who would have thought that one of the best books of the past 10 years was like Archie and friends, get murdered and or turned into zombies, and basically are the sole survivors of a zombie apocalypse that hit
Poor hot
Riverdale.
dog.
Like it's
Poor hot dog. He was a good boy.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's just some craziness, and I think wasn't the whole thing that caused it was Sabrina ended up getting getting pulled into a Cthulhu type situation, adult situation.
That caused one of the things. What caused the zombie outbreak in Afterlife was literally poor hot dog died. Like our boy's dog got killed and he was heartbroken, and they had to bring hot dog back, but they brought something back from the dead, and you're not supposed to do that. They frown upon that. And then things
I mean, all they had to do was read Pet Sematary. So,
it's right there.
It's right there. Black and white. No, you stole fizzy lifting drinks. And now you get nothing. Yep. Sabrina got a curse wrong trying to revive Hot Dog.
That was it.
Is what we have there. Yep. There we go. Thank you, Comic Book Bears podcast. Well, I think it's just about time that we go to our woofs. It is 11 o'clock. We are really pushing the show late tonight. So I sent a message to Bill to have him jump on. Hopefully he will be jumping on. But I think we can start.
I don't know. I gotta hear you try to say this, Steve. I gotta hear this variant woof of the week.
Variant woof of the week. Oh God, I don't know if I could do the spiel. Oh God. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, quick note here before we do this. David says nobody in a horror movie ever acts like they've seen a horror movie, and except for Scream, in the movie Scream, where they all talk about like having seen horror movies and this is what you shouldn't do in a horror movie, which of course they all then start to do. But yeah, it's like, why wouldn't, when Cabin in the Woods came out, it's like basically every single person in there, it's like, okay, you find a basement full of creepy stuff, maybe don't touch it. Don't touch it. Oh, we've got a returning figure. Ooh. Our captain, Bill Zanowitz, the cheesehead. This is what we do for costume changes here.
And superstition.
Yeah,
and superstition.
It's close.
It is pretty close.
Yep. Are we at the Woofs of the Week?
We are there.
Yes, we are.
Okay, so I guess ready. You guys had a good show, so we are wrapping it up. And when we wrap up an episode of the Comic Book Bears podcast up, we do so with a segment we call the Woofs of the Week. In the bear community, if you find a fellow attractive, you woof at him, or you grr, or you roar. Grr. And we do something similar. We send out a woof to something that maybe a comic book, maybe comic book related, maybe a film, maybe a TV program, maybe a charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener or viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start as I always do with Steve. Steve, what is your woof of the week?
Well, my first woof above the other woof is the woof to these two gentlemen down here, Bill Zanowitz and John Runyan, who or at John on Demand, who I got to have just an amazing time this past weekend at Baltimore Comic Con, and so grateful that you guys were there. And Caleb, next time you are definitely going to be with us, because we just had a blast, and thank you for making it a wonderful weekend. My big woof this week is going to be for a new video game that just came out this week called Guardians of the Galaxy, or Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy by Square Enix and Eidos Montreal. It is fantastic. There's some, I've got some minor grumblings about some of the combat, minor grumblings about, a couple glitches and things that I've encountered. But my gosh, this is storytelling. This is storytelling in the video game. The graphics are beautiful. The characters are great. It's got the things you like from the MCU movies, but it also has tons and tons and tons of stuff straight out of the comics. And it does a great job at that. And then also music licensing. It has a kick-ass soundtrack of the hits of the 70s, the 80s. You've got some Gary Newman on there. You've got some Iron Maiden and Twisted Sister. You've got Rick Astley. You've got all sorts of wonderful songs in the soundtrack that actually have like story beats and all sorts of stuff. And it's just so much fun to play. Really love it. Voice acting is incredible. There's so much dialogue in this. You might as well be watching a 20+ hour movie. And it is very Guardians. So if you love the Guardians and you have an Xbox One, a PS4, PS5, or an Xbox Series X, grab it. It's definitely worth it. And hopefully they'll have some DLC where they can tell even more stories. So if you played Marvel's Avengers that came out last year, this is nothing like this. They did this right. Guardians of the Galaxy done right. So definitely recommend it.
Okay, let's go over to our guest, John. John, what is your Wolf of the Week?
Well, speaking of charitable causes, I was not the only one doing the spoiling this past weekend. I came up to Steve and Bill and they said, we made some decisions for you. And I was like, oh, really? And they did raid some of the single issues. And so we have, kind of a messenger thread going. So as I process collections at the shop, I see some covers that kind of jump out at me. So they treated me to this mountain of Hercules comics. Hercules is definitely the boy right now, and love it. So I'm excited to dig into this. This will actually be I've met the character in some like crossover issues that I have with various series that I collect. Never truly jumped into Hercules. Plus, there's a Dark Reign issue, which I worship, the Dark Avengers. So I'm looking forward to seeing what possible relevance Norman Osborn has to Hercules, and we'll see how it goes.
Was that some of the Greg Pak stuff?
Yes,
yes.
Oh, dude, you're in for a treat.
You
are in for a good,
I am excited.
I'm jealous that you get to experience that for the first time.
And then a baby wolf goes out to a baby-sized pop. I got Galactus, and he glows in the dark. This is the chase. I have the normal one as well. It's the purple one, but I just think they're so cute. I just don't know where to display them yet. So he is.
Don't forget the little tiny Silver Surfer.
Oh yeah, they both come with a detachable Silver Surfer. So it's that little. He's like dark and then has yellow eyes, and it sits in his palm. If you let it, completely ridiculous and so amazing, and I'm really excited about it. So,
dang.
Okay, over to before we go over to Caleb, John, I do have a question. What is the origin of John on Demand?
Ooh, so John on Demand, at one point when we were doing a comic book look, I literally just sat back. And I don't know if I was talking to my good friend Sarah or to Tom, but I just was like, I just feel on demand. Like we were doing a comic book look. I was doing my own segment, a comic book look after hours, which I would interview creators one-on-one. So there's another night. My jobs were insane. I was doing like 14 hours a day because I was young back then. And I was always up to something, like I was always just getting out there and doing something, connecting with other channels, the usual, and so I felt like I was on demand, and then John on Demand. And I have a lot of music projects that I have out there using John on Demand as well. And it just kind of stuck with me. So that's my handle for everything that I do. And I love it. So.
Okay, now we know. All right, over to Caleb. Caleb, what is your Wolf of the Week?
So my Wolf of the Week actually combines a few things that I love, including comics, history, Americana, and porn. And yeah, you heard me right. So there is a book that came out this past year. It's called Lust Unearthed. I don't know if you guys can see this. This is pre-Stonewall vintage gay graphics from the Dubuque collection, and this is loosely written, but this is Thomas Waugh and Willie Walker put this together, and it is a collection of pre-Stonewall gay-related graphics that were collected by a gentleman named Ambrose Dubuque. Ambrose Dubuque was he was in the film industry. He was a costume designer. worked a lot in television, worked for CBS for a long time. And, not only was he a professional in the film industry, he was also noted for being kind of a playboy. He liked to go around Fire Island, but he also read comics, and he also had a very deep and powerful love for graphic art. Graphic being, multiple definitions of graphic. And so he collected all these things. He was friends with Tom of Finland. And so somebody who loves that, that's actually how I found this book and found him. So what this book does, Willie Walker and Thomas Waugh had actually written a previous book where they showed multiple historical gay graphics, kind of the history of gay comics. And it's a great work. I've got that book as well, but they really wanted to focus on the Dubeck collection and kind of the story that it told and go through it kind of one by one to see where his, like, what his predilections were and what he liked to collect, what he liked to collect. And so they were able to get in touch with his estate, some of his family members who have kept a lot of the art and who have made a lot of the art available. This is not a family who's ashamed of him or his family, which cannot be said of a lot of family and people from that era. He died in his, I think, late 80s in the early 90s. So this goes way back. And so they deliver a lot of this, and I'll show you like one of the few pieces of art that I actually can show you on here. You've got highly detailed, a lot of pencil sketchings that just go, they go in the eras. They were able to put them together thematically. There's themes of pre-World War II, of industrialization. There are themes of agrarian culture. There are themes of, obviously, when it comes to agrarian culture, the quote unquote farm boy, but there's also an obsession with masculinity shown throughout here. There is a note of interracial sex as well, which you don't see. It was taboo, and even beyond the gay stuff, interracial relationships were taboo. So they collected a lot of that work here, and it's just incredibly crafted. It's actually one of the few books that I've seen that has a collection of bisexual comics, which I thought was really cool because like I collect a lot of Tom of Finland stuff. I buy a lot of these that I really do think are art with a capital A. These collections that show the history of not only Americana but underground gay culture. So that a lot of that is in this, and it shows also, like I said, some bisexual art. So really cool. I got it off Amazon. It's called Lust Unearthed. It's not pricey. If you pay full price, it's $26.95. It's a thick book with some thick folks in it. So go check it out. It's really great. If you enjoy, if this is your cup of tea, you would like it.
Okay,
awesome.
Great. What were you gonna say, Steve?
Oh, I was just saying, awesome. That's pretty cool.
Okay, great. For my woof of the week, if you know me, I'm one of those old-fashioned home video dudes. And for the longest time with home video, the main name in deluxe video was Criterion Collection. And over the last few years, we've had a number of companies that have sprung up, like Kino Lorber and Arrow and Vinegar Syndrome, which have kind of taken up the slack of what Criterion doesn't release and provides, especially now that we are in a transition still from DVD to 4K and Blu-ray, some updated editions for home video of certain films. My favorite actor in the world is Cary Grant, and this week I received the Blu-rays issued from Kino Lorber of the two films he did with Mae West, She Done Him Wrong and I'm No Angel. And with these deluxe editions, you do have audio commentary from film historians. You do have bonus cartoons and some other supplementals. So with the contract that Kino Lorber has with MCA Universal, the 1930s Paramount films fall under that. And for the longest time, only a handful of Cary Grant's earlier films from when he was contracted to Paramount were out on any type of home video. For the most part, 75% of the first times I saw those was either through a theatrical run in a revival house or bootlegs. And so to have these in my hand, I'm really digging. Another film named Hot Saturday just came out this week. Very psyched about that. And from this, I was looking at the websites for Shout Factory and Arrow and Vinegar Syndrome, as I mentioned. And Jesus, it would be very easy to open the wallet and just be like, "Fly, bitches, fly!" All these goodies with supplementals. So that goes out to my Wolf of the Week, specifically to the company Kino Lorber, and I got some advanced I got some enhanced Blu-rays of material I never thought would have anything beyond like a standard DVD issue. So happy about that. And that's my Wolf of the Week. So John, thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciated you joining us after seeing you for days. So we got used to you. So very glad you could join us tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, awesome. And I am going to take my leave because I've got a game that I'm very much distracted by. So we're going to wrap this episode up. And when we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears up, we do so with the goodbye that I usually do. And that's, you thought I was going to do the Wolf of the Week. And so did I, because I'm so distracted. So again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to listen to us, you can do so by downloading us through Apple's Podcasts, through Stitcher Radio, and some of the other podcasting platforms. And if you want to write to us, please do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. Until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
You're going to hear a woof and an explosion. We'll be back real soon. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
I was hoping